why you shouldn't bother looking at the CPI print. My name's Eric. This is above my pay grade. Let's get into it. Sweating. I just got done chasing kids around my house. It's my daughter's 4th birthday today. So a couple things. CPI came out yesterday as lower. Just so you understand, when inflation goes down, doesn't mean prices are going down. Some people mistake that because I believe it was 8.5% last month, 8.23% this month. Prices aren't going down. They're just not going up as fast. So that's something to keep in mind. But why I think it's important not to put too much onus. A lot of economists do put a lot of, financial forecasts into the CPI, but you maybe have heard it called a CP lie, and that's really because it is. I mean, the way they account consumer price inflation is unbelievable, and it's not what most people spend money on. And it really doesn't really matter. If your cost of living has gone up 20% and the government says inflation is at 0, does it really matter what they're printing? If bare necessities, the same thing you're buying that you bought last year, have gone up 30%, if they want to say that it's 10, 5, 2, doesn't matter. If your cost of living is going up that much, that's inflation for you. And my experience, most middle class, lower class Americans are feeling the pinch of inflation a lot more than the government's printing. So I want to talk about a theory from a guy named Ludwig von Mises. I'm really good with German names. But he proposed this back in the early 20th century, called something called the crack-up boom. And he talked about it with Germany, who had hyperinflation prior to Hitler taking over. And essentially the theory is you have high unemployment and a recession, and you have inflation at the same time. And sometimes that can be a little disconcerting to people because they can see, let's take a look at 2020 when nobody was working and the stock market was doing this. And that was kind of my wake-up call. But everyone's like, what the heck is going on? And since our system is based off of credit and the expansion of money, a good example of this is the derivatives market. If you don't understand what a derivative is, it will blow your mind. But think about a house, and this is kind of what caused the 2008 crisis. A house is worth X amount of dollars. And then other speculators bet on that house price going up. And then other speculators bet on their bet for that house price going up. And these bets, essentially one base commodity, that would be either like gold, sometimes Bitcoin has derivatives, housing market. There's so many dollars built on top of it, and the derivatives market is in the quadrillions of dollars. But what happens is, if you're taking out this debt on this bet, right? Think about it if you went to the casino and you placed a bet and you're doing it on credit and you lose, and you went to another casino, paid on credit and placed a bet, you lose. Eventually those people are going to come clamoring for their money. And if you aren't able to pay one back, then the dominoes start falling. You can't pay the second guy back because the first guy is relying on the second guy to pay him back, to pay this guy back. I don't know if I'm making any sense. But there's so many people involved in this one asset, in the price, that if the dominoes start falling, no one can pay each other. And this is Wall Street 101. And the more you learn, the more you're the average person goes, that's what happens? And yeah, that's what happens. It's just bets on top of bets, and this is all illegal. This kind of goes back to gambling's illegal, except for government-sponsored gambling like the lotto, right? Government makes things legal that benefits them, and derivatives market definitely does. But all that to say, there's so much debt with no, like 1/1000th of all that money is actually based on the asset itself and the price of that asset. But that can cause a massive crash. And the crack-up boom, essentially, the assumption is you typically don't have higher prices with a recession because demand goes down. But when you have high inflation, the demand can stay high, and the reason being is people are buying things and stockpiling, right? So if car prices are going up, and a good example of this, and this builds on the CPI as well, you can have these economists that are saying, car prices aren't going up. Take a look at these. Dealers are marking up their vehicles, not marking up the MSRP, but just doing a dealer markup or a market fee. Let me know in the comments if any of you have bought a car in the last year. But these brand new cars have a markup fee. But that isn't accounted into inflation because MSRP didn't go up. So this is why the CPI print, what's going on in your life is what matters, not what the CPI print is. But the crack-up boom, you can have demand stay high and the company's doing very well because people are buying these things to stockpile because they know the price will go up the next month. But eventually that carousel stops and this whole system falls apart. So something I think you should keep in mind, and kind of my thesis, is we're going to we have a debt-based monetary system. Okay, so you kind of need to make these decisions for yourself, but the system is built on debt. There will always be debt expansion. The Federal Reserve will not stop quantitative easing. The federal government will not stop printing and spending, because that is what our system is based off of. Grow and expand the money supply, expand the credit. Okay, so that won't ever stop. We have a problem right now that they're trying to fix, which is inflation. But if we have even the slightest tick down where inflation isn't front of mind for everybody, or in this case, let's say the Federal Reserve, from raising interest rates, crashes the stock market. And a lot of people's purchasing power came from stocks and the value of their home, potentially the value of crypto. A lot of people's purchasing power came from those assets ballooning in 2021. So what happens when that purchasing power goes away, because those drop? A lot of those people who aren't in the workforce because they're rich, because they got rich in the stock market, will come back to the workforce, okay, at the time of a recession. And you know what the response to that will be? It will be more printing, more quantitative easing. That mechanism won't end. So when you're thinking about what you want to invest in, that won't ever end, okay? The dollar will crash. We won't be on the dollar anymore before that ends. So this system will continue until the dollar crashes. The question is, which a lot of economists and me trying to figure out, when exactly is that going to happen? Okay, a lot of people said that in 2008 from credit expansion, the dollar was going to crash and the world was going to end. I will say something to keep in mind, unprecedented times we are living in when it comes to monetary expansion and government debt. Unlike in 2008. And so when this debt-based system, when a government official or the Fed comes in with quantitative easing, the next time the quantitative easing has to be even bigger and bigger and bigger. And so the exponential curve of this train headed towards failure goes, hockey stick up. So in theory, it happens very slowly and then all at once. Look into Weimar Germany in the early 20s, how their inflation, it was, I believe, 2 years from when the mark was like the best currency in the world, higher value than the dollar, to basically people were using it to heat their homes. Took 2 years. Will that happen in the United States? Eventually, I think yes. But some of the things to keep in mind, that crack-up boom, these assets could rocket ship up because people are buying, and demand is staying high because of inflation. So it's the worst of both worlds. You have inflation and recession. Can the Fed avoid this? Who knows? But I do think it's important to understand this is the system you're in. It's not a bug. It's a feature of debt-based system. It has to constantly expand or the whole system falls apart. Those dominoes that I was talking about earlier, they all start crumbling down. So what am I doing? I'm stacking cash because I do think there'll be awesome buying opportunities, but I'm also buying things that the government can't produce more of. I haven't bought real estate, but I do have some gold and silver and Bitcoin. Both of those, or those three things, I dollar cost average into. It's not financial advice, but in a system that is based off credit and derivatives and made up fugazi things, it's nice to have the actual thing that the derivative is based off of, because no one can reproduce that. All right. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Hope you got something out of this. If you like this stuff, please like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.